Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. We just saw MVP Black take a dominant match over the Deadly Kittens to claim the first matchup in Group A. Second matchup is up next. We have got CE versus Tempo Storm. It should be a fantastic one. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Now, over to the man who puts the H in HGC. That is Kylaris. Sir, over to you.
We're beginning with the teasing already. I can see it's going to be a good tournament. Thank you very much, Cloaken. Indeed, the HGC, the right way to say it, is well underway. And next up, we have China going up against North America. And for North America, Tempo Storm, one of the hopefuls to be able to propel themselves on in this group. A lot of people are looking at this match, Dred, to start things off as the big definer of who's going to take potentially second place in this group.
I think that's a very fair assessment. With these two teams, it's going to be I expect a very competitive performance. I'm hoping to see a lot here from Tempo Storm. I feel like they kind of rode a wave of momentum through the playoffs and kind of felt that, that drive to want to win and be the best into the world. And it feels like that they have been able to translate that all the way through over into BlizzCon. So I think now it's just going to be, showing that it's not just words, that they have the action to back it up.
Joining us down at the end is Jay Howe, who is just bringing us that commentary, loving the Butcher picks. Don't think we're going to be seeing much Butcher in this series unless something has drastically gone weird in the meta whilst we've been gone.
I just am going to point this out, that there were whispers of the Butcher before the days started. I'm not going to say where they came from, but I know that this is not a fluke, Dred, whether you want to believe it or not. I highly doubt we'll see it, but, we heard Rich say it was a Sonya counter, maybe against Deadly Kittens, probably not much more.
All right, well, we can take a look at the bracket and see what's going on so far in Group A, as we have one match concluded, many more to come. We'll have 5 matches throughout the day. CE is going to be going up against Tempo Storm next, and the winner of that gets the grand old opportunity to play against MVP Black. So it's a bittersweet taste as you go through this bracket to start things off, as I feel like I'm in Orgrimmar right now. I'm loving it. Oh, this music. Unfortunately for Deadly Kittens, they have fallen down to that lower part of the bracket there. But CE going up against Tempo Storm. Let's talk about CE a little bit, because for me, at the start of the year especially, I felt like, aside from your E-Stars, CE were that one team for China that was looking to be, we're going to be #1 in China, we're going to be #1 in China. Since then, SPT has really stepped things up, and CE has kind of taken a little bit of the back burner, Dred, in this position.
Yeah, I think that's a really great assessment of kind of what has been happening within the Chinese ecosystem. Ultimately, SPT it feels like they've reached their final form and is really kind of making a staple for themselves after China lost, E-Star and the kind of known #1 team. But CE here at this tournament, they are going to be struggling a little bit in the fact that they do not have all 5 of the original representatives. Not having Shuyu, I do think, might be something that really makes it difficult to gauge what that is going to bring up against a team like Tempo.
I'll check in with you in a moment, Grubby, because we do look at the schedule to make sure that you guys are up to date as to what's going on so far here in the tournament. Our next matchup, CE versus Tempo Storm, and MVP Black and Kittens await their matchups. Again, double elimination format, so you have 2 opportunities to go through if needs be. So, Grubby, looking at CE, how have you been able to kind of feel out CE from HGC China and what they're bringing?
Well, they finished second in their region. They have the one substitute, which it's not nice to talk about, but it should be mentioned.
Of course.
We'd like to have their whole team here, but Loktar is going to be the substitute. So they're a little bit weaker. And in the player interviews, they actually said that because they don't have their full roster, they're going to revert to their most natural style. And for them, full-on aggression. They actually said brawl to the death, in English, by the way,
yes,
as their method of operating here. So that's going to be very indicative of their mindset into this tournament.
Yeah, we had a great opportunity to talk to them, Jay Howe.
We did, and to further Dred's point about the Chinese ecosystem, this was one of the teams I studied a lot going into midseason brawl. Of course, the substitutes then, but going back to their core, they were statistically one of the most aggressive teams in terms of that KD that they have as a team. Cumulatively, they would go out, they would dominate their opponents, they would get several kills per game while also not dying a lot. It was just a very aggressive, very, very Chinese approach. But as you said, things have changed. We also have the sub. And if they're going back to that play style, this is the CE that we wanted to see going into mid-season brawl. Yeah. So we might get that here.
But there's one more thing I want to say. We talk about their aggression, but one thing that really stands out to me every time we talk to the Chinese teams and to CE here is that they do their homework. for me, no matter how good you are in the world, there is no excuse for not looking at each and every one of the teams. If you have the time, you're going to look at them. Maybe they're far below your level. For example, MVP Black doesn't look at Deadly Kittens, but as long as you can balance your mindset and you don't say like, oh, we're spending so much time. Are we like worried about this team? Like, are we going to play worse because now we studied them and we're like getting in their head and now they got into our head? No, if you have the balance of mind and the humility, you do study the opponents. CE said that they did this, and I think that's a big power advantage. Plus, Tempo Storm, they played in December. December 2016, they played in a Chinese tournament, GCWC. So they said they have material, they have looked at tempo, and that's going to play into their hands.
Well, let's move on, Dred, as we have Tempo Storm, and who better to start with than yourself to give us a glimpse into how they're going to be like feeling coming into this series and even this tournament.
Confidence is what seems to be displayed here by multiple members of Tempo Storm. A little bit different than the confidence we normally see here, a bit less than the boastful. It's just that they feel that they have kind of found their identity, they have found themselves in their play style, and that they are going to really just hone in on that, perfect it here for the stage of BlizzCon. And when I was talking to Fury behind the scenes yesterday, he was very much like, we're just going to play our playstyle and we feel good about it. We're confident about our meta and our strategy.
It's been particularly interesting. This team has been together since, I think, July of last year, going into the fall regionals. And I've known these players, it seems like, for a while. And I've never seen them in the manner that they're in. They're having fun. They're confident, as you said. It's a very different feel. And at breakfast this morning, I sat down with Kala, their coach. I said, man, I was like, where is this coming from? I don't see this personality-wise from your team. He's like, I don't know, man. He's like, we're just feeling good. We worked a lot on our team morale and things like that, and things seem to have come together at the right time for that team. I remember watching when you guys were casting NA, they qualified, and we had that group shot of Tempo just going bananas that they qualified for BlizzCon. I was like, that's what you want to see, and I think that they're carrying over that momentum.
And even though that momentum does exist, though, for Tempo Storm, I do want to highlight, and that it is slightly different, I do want to highlight that there are some commonalities as well. That Tempo Storm always feels rather confident when going to the international stage, and they have been rather confident within themselves, and with the thought process of we play our play style, and almost to the point where it feels like that they're stubborn and unwilling to adapt. And so, though it does feel different, I'm still, again, kind of waiting for their actions to outweigh their words, because at this point, it's been so consistent that it's almost expected of Tempo Storm.
You saying consistently inconsistent?
Exactly.
That's a thing. Let's find out where we're going to be going for the map for the first match of this. The first battleground will be Battlefield of Eternity, CE's pick to start things. What do we make of that, Grubby? Any thoughts?
It's a real team fight battleground. There's only 2 lanes. There's very few ways to get back into the match if you fall behind early. And a single takedown in the first 2 minutes will make sure that your team is level 4 when the other team is level 3 as you go into the first Immortal phase. So to pick such a heavy team fight map here makes a lot of sense for CE. Tempo definitely love to play the map. They like their Sky Tempo games. They like their bigger maps where they can just avoid, rotate, play in a very brainy style. And I do think that style matches up well against an aggressive team, but I don't know that they get that space here on the battleground. But let's see.
Let's light fights against Dark here to start things off on Battlefield of Eternity. CE goes up against Tempo Storm. Let's get this draft going for game number 1.
For me, Tempo Storm, probably the most tight-lipped team that we have here at BlizzCon. They have alluded to the fact that they are bringing out stuff that people haven't seen before. It's a different flavor of what people are doing, and they feel so confident in it that they don't even they respect what the opponent's going to pick. And we said they said, we're sticking to our guns. We're sticking to our guns. They believe in what they've been practicing. They talked about their boot camp. I want to see, is that what they come out of the gate showing? Because this is a very tough challenge on day 1.
And it did feel like CE put a lot of emphasis on counteracting and using the depth of their hero pools, being willing to bust out those kind of wild Chinese strategies that we have grown to know and love. And against a team that is flaunting a lack of predictability, that they're willing to bring in their own flavor and their own style here, I do think it's going to be a difficult challenge that CE has no games at this tournament to compare in against Tempo Storm, since that is their #1, strength.
Dred, when you prepared before, obviously everybody kind of had their strategies and they feel good about it. What is the overall morale of a team generally when you are confident but it doesn't go well? Like, what happens?
It really depends
Is
on
it-
a lot of variables. It's actually really surprising. I would say it can go about any way, direction, good and or bad is what you can think of. It is, most of the time, I feel like it comes down to just how easy can you scapegoat a excuse like for it, and whether or not how many people on your team agree. And that is really kind of how easy it's going to flaunt over
Wow.
here.
Ooh, that's early.
Yeah, very early. Malthael pickup. He's good on the battleground, but generally gets used against heavy warrior, heavy support comps. He's pretty good at backline diving as well, but you see him rarely in that first pick. That's pretty interesting.
I think overall, though, when you look at Tempo Storm internationally, that's a very bold statement for their first game, considering their usual draft patterns of, we're going to play standard, stable, almost normal.
Tassadar.
Yeah.
Except they banned Tassadar, which was the most interesting part. It shows that they're changing. We see the Tyrael Grey main. We know the effectiveness of that, especially post-10. You get that sanctification, you dive in. It also works really well. If you're not going to go the Lucio route, as we hear the beats in the background, you put down that sanctification to deal with Malthael when he comes in post-10.
But that is so CE, that is so China, opening up with Tyrael Grey main.
Very, very China indeed. Now, of course, Zuyu is not here, the one member for CE that wasn't there, so he would have normally been the Grey main. So we'll see how that fits out for CE down the line.
Even the Tyrael by itself makes a lot of sense here. Malthael, if he goes for Tormented Souls, he's got a 4-second period to do a lot of damage. And this gets counteracted fairly well by Tyrael with the Sanctification. So it will be up to Tempo Storm to try and find a hero that can interrupt Sanct when you feel it coming. By intuition, by timing, knowing that's when Tyrael is going to Sanct. There's half a second to cancel. Good options would involve Muradin, Lucio with the bump. It's going to be Ariel and Valak. Could have some Rain of Vengeance, Detainment Strike. These are good options.
And so, you know, on that kind of, you know, the unique flavor that Tempo Storm has kind of been boasting about here, I already with these first 3 picks, I'm looking at it and I'm just going, so where's the wild card? Because so far, it just feels like meta picks in a unique priority.
We got an Ana hovering for the ban. One of the interesting things about Sanctification, if you use it, you're clumping up under it to make sure you don't feel the effectiveness.
Yes.
Rain of Vengeance is like, okay, that's done, my turn.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh, you got free targets. It's fish in a barrel at that point. But again, the Ana, the new hero that we haven't seen in competitive play. We talked about the Muradin rework, we saw that. But nobody has seen Ana before. And now we see the first hover for the ban. I think there's going to be some potential Ana games throughout our first day here if she makes it.
Yeah, most teams we spoke to felt she is very powerful, but situationally so. She suffers from low wave clear. That means Battlefield is a pretty good map for her, because wave clear isn't that important here. Secondly, her combo with Malthael is truly something else. It's fearsome. Malthael can just keep his finger down on that Q button, keep damaging, keep healing, and with that nano boost, it just goes into overdrive. So very heads up, very smart ban here by CE.
I feel like your analysis is very astute, especially with the picks that are on the other side. If you've got Malthael, who's your solo laner, Oriel and Vala for that wave clear already, it's the perfect ban to say, okay, well, you know, this could potentially fit in, but
100%.
Rhaegar and Lucio, what are we making of it, boys?
Really afraid of Tempo Storm going with the Abathur ban there and not considering the Lucio double support picked up now for CE. It is a very mobile, very deadly, and very aggressive composition here for CE. I would like to say that it has some glaring holes, but currently it very much does not feel like that's the case. And so I want to see, you know, a big power play here with the last 2 picks for Tempo Storm. Going to kick it off with the ETC.
It feels like they've got to go a second support here, right? I mean, you cannot...
I mean, what you need is a reset of the fight, preferably several, because Grey main Tyrael, they're going to be jumping in. You need some reset, you need some pushback. Could be Stukov, it could be, you know, anyone that can push people back. ETC is a great pick, and also Brightwing, there we go.
Yeah.
Potential Emerald Wind. Now for CE, what would really fit is probably something like Liming, something very aggressive that can come forward with the boys and get some big kills and resets. But a lot of options, actually.
Yeah.
Very clear play styles from the compositions that we've been rounding out here. Very kind of clashing play styles that we can see from these 2 comps.
Sanctification counter for the potential mosh pit if it comes to that. You've got the boop from Lucio. Is that enough? As you said, maybe the Liming does kind of fit that. You have a second interrupt in case a safety net. You also have good race towards the Immortal, things like that. I think can play towards that, but...
Let's see what is going to be that final pick for CE. Immortal Race of Greymane is fantastic, so is Rhaegar. Is that their goal, or will it be fully about that team fight as well?
I hope to see a high amount of burst, whatever the last pick is, just to make sure that it can follow up with the Tyrael and Greymane and secure those kills onto the Vala, onto the Brightwing and Auriel whenever they're forcing that, because both Brightwing and Auriel are pretty situational when they're effective with their actual burst healing to be able to save those dive targets here. Murden will aid with that kind of lockdown to make sure that the Greymane can be a threat along with the Tyrael.
Yes.
Rhaegar with Lightning Bond on top of the Tyrael is really a big threat to be considering here and a large amount of damage. I really do like the draft here that he's been able to compose.
What do we think, Jay? How?
With that being in that secondary role, that secondary bruiser role with Murden on there, I mean, Tyrael and Murden both play exceptionally well depending on your composition. And I'm starting to wonder, will we get that Korean-style playstyle on your Q? And now you have the stacking Q that you have built in as default, so you can get that piercing in there. It's really effective. Once you stack that early in a map like BOE, where you're going to have standoff periods potentially, it gives you opportunities that you don't necessarily have on other maps. So you could potentially see that effectiveness as the game goes. Post-level 7 with heavy impact, you get that Q stacking up, things like that. Murden can become a serious threat, especially post-10, maybe even a little bit of haymaker action.
Get a little bit wild.
It's going to happen this weekend. It's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. Grubby, your thoughts?
I think it's a good draft by Tempo Storm. The Muradin, he's very strong right now. Surprised me a little bit not having more damage in there. Malthael, I would say he was first pick, but I would still pick him into the entire comp here of CE. Even if he was last pick, I would have believed it. So I like Tempo Storm's draft a little bit more. Tempo Storm.
All right, well, make sure out there to vote for your favorite team going into this series, of course, with the hashtags. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports to get the HGC universe buzzing over on Twitter. For now, we're almost ready to go into our series. Final thought before we go over to them?
I do want to say that, you know, I haven't touched up on Tempo's draft that much, that they are playing a little bit different than their traditional playstyle, but still sticking to a lot of what we saw through the momentum into the playoffs here with the double support and having the Brightwing. I think it caters to their strengths, and so I think it's a really nice kickoff to the tournament for them. But I do really feel like if the CE has the coordination necessary, that this composition and this high mobility dive to be able to blow up a squishy is really going to be what we see out of a lot of Eastern teams to deal with North America's double support.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, as we'll check in after this match has concluded. For now, we're going to head over to our commentary team as Trixler and Gillyweed are ready to take it away.
Thank you, Caleres. Team Trickyweed is here back once again, and I'm so stoked that we get to commentate CE versus Tempo Storm. I think this is going to be one of the closer series of today, definitely.
Yeah, today's very important. This matchup is really kind of a pointer of who will be the #2 seed to come out of this group. A lot of people are already popping for MVP Black to be #1, but the #2 up in the balance right now, and I can't wait to actually see this match unfold. Tempo Storm has been a team that's very methodical, deliberate when it comes to their gameplay, but CE, they love to bring the fight towards you, and they are very effective at it.
And they're going to do it here on Battlefield of Eternity. The game is ready, so let's get into this next best of 3 to determine who has to fight MVP Black in the winners match of this group.
And here we go, Gillyweed. On the left side here in the blue, it will be a CE. Lockdoor will be playing Greymane, Paradise on Muradin, KTY going to be on Lucio, Wind on Tyrael, and Aloof, my favorite support player, playing Rhaegar.
Yeah, Aloof is amazing. I want to see his Karzium, and maybe we'll get it later on. But here in the red, we've got Tempo Storm with June playing Auriel Fury, playing ETC. Kothenluck will be back on the secondary support, playing Brightwing. Som playing Vala. Finally, Caterpillar playing his Malthael. Now, Trixler, they talked about it. Locktar is subbing in along with CE, but Locktar is a great fit to this team. When I talked to Tetcher, he commentates the Chinese region. He said that Locktar is a great fit, and his very best is Greymane. He might even be bringing more aggression to CE, which honestly, I can't even believe would be possible. This is such an aggressive, such a team fight focused team.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to see how Locktar will perform during this entire tournament. CE themselves said they're actually very comfortable to have him on the team here. He's going to be showing up. Tetcher, shout-outs to him, has been hyping me up on this guy. He says he is a literal god. So now I expect a literal god plays. And already CE coming in, bringing that trademark Chinese aggression, jumping on top of Cattle, getting down to half health. But you can see this will be the theme of the entire series.
Yeah, Tempo Storm may not be ready for how CE and how Chinese teams in general approach Battlefield of Eternity. This early phase is not, let's just sit in our lanes until the Immortal phase spawns.
Nope.
This is, we head to the mid and we brawl. And if you don't brawl us there, we'll head somewhere else and we'll find a place to fight you. KTY is clear over on Tempo's side of the battleground.
He's over there flirting with Auriel on the right side. Let's go ahead, 1v1 duel. And that little maneuver from KTY actually pulled Tempo Storm away from the lanes they wanted to be in. 3 members showed up on that right side, which allows CE to get aggressive on the bottom side. A nice, beautiful play there from Lucio, and as long as there's communication going forward, you can get that value in the push. A little bit of damage here on the turret, and CE already doing great.
Just chipping away at the members of Tempo Storm here and there, either the players themselves or at the towers. And we've talked a lot about CE as we get ready for this first Immortal phase, but I want to highlight that Tempo Storm, this is the exact same roster that represented North America. We're the #1 team from North America at the last BlizzCon under the name of Astral Authority. Yet at that point, they only won a single game versus Soul Torturers before falling out of the tournament. This is their chance to show direct improvement, being able to defeat a team like CE here, and Fury is getting aggressive, going in for the defense.
Love to see the power slide there right on the Immortal as well, which allows Tempo Storm to get the defender's advantage. Nice little trade for them overall, while Malthael continues to poke from the side on the Immortal. Malthael with that Reaper's Mark, always annoying and burning down the Immortals. Gets better too as we move towards that level 4. Throwing Shade is a possibility here for Tempo to pick up.
Yeah, that's a definite possibility. We already see on a Pale Horse, which is fairly common in North America, especially on Battlefield of Eternity, because it allows for making those quick rotations between the lane and the Immortal. But the rest of Tempo Storm just trying to defend and buy some time for that Detainment Strike from June, and that'll be first blood.
And Tempo Storm's confidence is showing right now. 1 pick already, looking for Locktar as well on the backside. Kato applying the Reaper's Mark everywhere he can, while Tempo Storm will take the time to send Bala up to the Immortal. Start working in that Hungering Arrow.
Yeah, Tempo Storm has a couple of different good members. There was the Malthael, and then Psalm, of course, is building into the Hungry Arrow build. Even with Ariel, so important to get that build because of the damage that it can do to a single target. And, of course, with Monster Hunter, that single target also being things like Immortals.
Illy, can I just say how happy I am to see Tempo Storm playing aggressive?
Me too!
They did it in North America, and this season, they had a great season, especially towards the end. But coming out to an international tournament and showing confidence, this is what we've needed from Tempo Storm. Maybe a little bit too much there, though, as Psalm gets picked off. Paradise is low, looking to retreat, but Cawthon gets flinged across the room.
Yeah, they're going to lose 2 here, trying to get in and be aggressive, but they were on the side of the battleground, closer to CE, and some were fairly low. And CE took advantage of that, getting a triple kill as they march all the way across. They're going to do what damage they can, but this will most certainly be a CE Immortal now because of that triple play and the damage they had already done.
And I love the greed there from CE. Realizing they got a couple of kills, they immediately split 2 members to the side.
Exactly.
Rhaegar and Lucio. They got experience, they push out their lanes, they finished off the Immortal, and now they have a 2-level lead. 1 level here as Tempo Storm gets the experience in, but it helps them push towards that level 7 and continue to move forward.
And I'm really happy to see those kinds of plays from CE, because CE's problem has always been that kind of Chinese mentality that we see in Heroes of the Storm. Always about the team fights. Even being baited to team fights when that is not the best for you. Things like being down talent tiers if they feel like they need it. And their team fighting is superb, so fantastic, but it's teams like SPT who have started to teach them how punishing it is to not be able to keep up with the macro game at the same time. SPT's been doing that really well during the secondary part, and CE and BTG have really started to learn from it. There's a Stormbolt, though.
Tempo is playing very scared right now. They know that 7 looms here for CE, and at level 7, heavy impact coming online. Murda at that point doesn't feel like a tank anymore. He feels like an assassin beelining for you, and CE will be intending to do that with that heavy impact being picked up and continuing the aggression on the right side. Now, with all 5 members of Tempo Store coming to the bottom for defense, CE takes the opportunity to rotate towards the top, get a free trade out on that experience, and they're slowing down the rotation here. Look at this Wind, who, by the way, is a Tyrael that you need to keep an eye on.
He is my favorite Tyrael. He is so amazing on his Tyrael. He even is showing his signature build, which includes Angel's Grace. At level 7, having this extra movement speed that he gets, he wants to constantly be throwing out these Eldruins and then being able to move into a better position for things like dropping Sanctification. This is key to CE's type of composition. Having that Sanctification together to enable Greymane to dive in and get a kill on a squishy Valla.
I think that talent is actually really important against Valla players in particular. When they're able to start cutting backwards, you want to be able to chase them, cape up and stay in their face. Tyrael's damage is actually very front-loaded when it comes to the smite, so being able to chase down an opponent and continue auto-attacking them will stress them out as much as possible, and it also gives you a really solid escape. So watch out for Wind to show why that talent will be powerful in this matchup.
Yeah, he is such a fun Tyrael to watch. We loved watching his Tyrael at the Eastern Clash. Tempo Storm's trying to fire back at this point. They're doing some structural damage in the top, but a lot of CE's focus was in the bottom lane. That's a mercenary camp that without a fort will be pushing that lane well and set that lane up for the even bigger push with the Shaman from CE that they're starting to get in preparation for this next Immortal phase. Tempo is leagues behind. This is not a place you want to be on Battlefield of Eternity because of the 2 lanes and because of the long objective in the center.
So facial build here for the Brightwing. A bit curious to see how that will pan out, especially with the heavy impact coming online for Muradin. Eventually we'll get to level 10, which is where CE will drop down the Tyrael certification, and Greymane will attempt to take down Malthael as soon as possible. Brightwing having that facial build might be able to help mitigate it, but usually having some kind of damage mitigation or a cleanse could be much more effective in that regard.
Yeah, they're going to be potentially missing out on that cleanse from the Muradin, but Muradin is there to try to help out too with ETC and a Mosh Pit. We do still have a cleanse from CE. Touch of Death is there for Tempo Storm now, so they do have an opportunity to try to stop an Ancestral Healing from being able to keep Greymane alive, but with Sanctification and with Sound Barrier, if CE combos these abilities well, the way that we see so many of these Eastern teams doing with these safe, heroic abilities like Sanctification and Sound Barrier, it does feel like Tempo Storm's going to have a really hard time breaking through.
Tempo needs to fight right now or get out, regardless.
Yes.
10 is about to hit for CE, and they're dancing around. They're flirting with the idea of going for an engage, but CE is not giving them an opportunity. That corridor is being held there by Lucio, so the knockback is always available, and Tempo Storm will be forced to pull away and have Brightwing soak towards that 10. But the Immortal, with this 10 hitting, is going to go over to CE, and they're going to be pushing with that heroic advantage.
Yeah, and they absolutely should, because this is a terrifying position for Tempo Storm to be in. This is a terrifying position that many teams have found themselves in on Battlefield of Eternity, and that's defending a super strong Immortal with heroic abilities. Thankfully for Tempo, though, they bought some time. Not for them to get 10, but the shielding is not fully shielding for the Immortal. They have these ranged heroes, specifically they have Vala to try to burn that down so that it gets into melee range. Tempo Storm's just gonna have to wait to the back, but they've been found.
Here's Wind here trying to go for the Sanctification. He will get it, and Vala gets taken away. We do have the Vala no longer on the field. CE finds a pick, and you were talking about maybe some defense could be available. That Vala falling now significantly reduces that. This fort's dead and a keep wall easily.
The defense should have just been at the keep anyway. I'm not sure why some people were out at all through the gates, but that is going to be costly for Tempo Storm now. They still have Brightwing in the bottom lane trying, hoping that Tempo Storm can get their heroic abilities, and soon the shielding will be down enough that this Mortal will move forward. At least there's no Sound Barrier and there's no Sanctification, but there's still heroic abilities there for CE.
Paradise just got a 3-man stun there with a heavy impact. Fury doing a great job appealing for his team and keep him alive. The 10 right around the corner here for Tempo Storm. Can they keep their keep alive as the Immortal continues to fall in hell?
The keep lives, and that is a breath of fresh air to Tempo Storm that they keep that alive, but they have to put on the aggression now. And how? Now that they have heroic abilities. This would even be a great point because so many heroics were used by CE if Tempo can find them out. CE, though, playing pretty safely. Paradise seeing exactly where Tempo Storm are going. CE not really giving them the fight, and that is... It's so hard to convey, but that really is a level up for CE, that they are not giving a fight at this point.
That they are. Paradise into the side, anchoring for his team, just keeping tabs on Tempo Storm. For the next 6 levels, Tempo Storm is actually in a decent spot. Their ability to fight in team fights with Tormented Souls, Rain of Vengeance, being able to get the Emerald Wind and Separation, and of course Mosh Pit is wonderful for them if they can find that fight. CE, though, they're looking for 16. They can play safe until then. When Holy Ground comes online, the ability for Muradin to jump in further. Paradise getting caught on the left side, Ancestral coming out, but it is too late, and Tempo Storm fights back.
And Caterpillar making sure that he applied the Touch of Death just in case too. That will put the Ancestral Healing back on a shortened cooldown. It is there, but at the cost of a Muradin, and this is the moment that Tempo Storm needed to start getting back into this game, trying to bring things down like the well so that there's less of a reinitiation up here in the top lane, trying to bring down structures too so they can tie back up. Tempo Storm no longer has any forts, and one of their keeps is half dead, so they need to try to make that, get caught back up in that regard.
Regardless, when it comes down to it, Tempo Storm has already made me a happy camper. This is what I've needed for them in past international tournaments. Aggression, forcing mistakes. They usually just wait around and wait for you to fall apart, and then they go in for the engage afterwards. But when you're at this high caliber of level of play, you're not going to get those situations to pop out. You have to force it. And Tempo Storm is showing confidence today and also an understanding of where their power spikes are. I am actually very proud of them after this game 1.
Yeah, that's a great point that you were talking about, that the mistakes that you might be waiting for within your own region, you can't depend on. You can't depend on CE, especially the way that CE has been playing. The only thing would maybe be that CE gets just overly aggressive, but at this point, they are so far ahead that they kind of are allowed to. So Tempo Storm here, it's a They are down the 13 talent tier, but it's not sort of a situation where they couldn't get into a fight with this, especially with big heroic abilities like Tormented Souls, like Emerald Wind, and especially the Mosh Pit.
Well, CE is attempting to keep Tempo Storm back by their Immortal. Paradise jumps in, gets a stun, there'll be a Storm Bolt to follow up. Fury bringing out the Face Melt, helping keep the opponent away. We will have Face Shield come off here for Kathan, but he should be able to get that brought up pretty quickly with that level 1.
Double Mercenary Camp in the bottom lane is starting to be a real threat for Tempo Storm, and because Tempo wanted to defend up at the top, they are a long way away from this, and that's where you're seeing the positioning of CE, waiting to see if anyone rotates down and all the way around, keeping them from that. Either way, they are winning, but at least they force a cleanse on Paradise.
Yeah, CE should stay here in this area, keep Tempo Storm locked down. They win the trade on the fort versus the keep with those objectives and mercenaries picking on the bottom side. Tempo Storm looking like they want to get aggressive, still not 13 here, but they have to do something here with that keep in trouble.
Power Slide hits when Crystal Aegis is forced. Tormented Souls is there too, but a quick Sound Barrier following up with the Sanctification too. So that is a couple of heroic abilities that were used just to stop the Tormented Souls, but it did stop the Tormented Souls still.
Aegis gets used though. We had Zombie a little bit too low there. Couldn't move forward to apply some damage on his opponent, and therefore CE is going to win out the trade on the heroics. Even though with Sanctification and Sound Barrier being down, they still have the engage from Murden, which is a major threat here. With Tormented Souls being down, Tempo Storm loses a major amount of their power.
Yeah, and there was still the Ancestral Healing in case the right moment, the right opportunity for a Greymane to go and go for the throat. And that is enough of a fear for Tempo Storm to retreat and try to clear out those camps. But Trickster, the damage was done. That keep took a ton of damage, less than halfway down now. And if CE gets this Immortal now, they're already the halfway point, it's feeling like it should be a CE game.
Tempo Storm is getting to a point here where they're going to have to make a play, and they know it. They're getting Brightwing down on the bottom side so she can get 13 for the team. This will allow for them to go in for an engage. If they can buy time, exactly 34 seconds, Tempo Storm will be in a better state. But the problem is, at the same time, CE, they'll have Sanctification.
Right, they ideally fighting before you get those safety heroics. Sound Barrier is a given. It's going to be back in just a few. Cawthon is phase shifting in now, so Tempo Storm are hoping to get the fight. Fury, though, using that phase shift now, it's not a place where they could put Brightwing in a spot to separate out the team, but it seemed like it was just forced in because they felt like Cawthon needed to come in to get the safety of the phase shield.
Got it, but will it be enough? CE working some damage on the left side, Cattle at the same time. Using Malfield to burn down the Immortal while the rest of his team tries to buy time. Paradise jumps in, Aegis will get used instantly. A Sync going to pop out, but the Mosh Pit was utilized.
It was utilized, but it was stunned out too, and that is all. It is down. Tormented Souls is back up, Emerald Wind is there too. So Tempo Storm are still in this even without that. Power Slide hits once again, the damage in. Ancestral Healing this time, it does connect and it does heal up Locktar.
Yes, the Ancestral Healing is going to help out. The Sync got interrupted again, and now we'll have Cattle go for the engage here. A second, one more here. Finally, Sync is available. Tempo Storm unable to secure a kill, but they do buy space, and this allows for them to move over to the Immortal and start working on it. Fury is trying to buy time, trying to dissuade CE from burning down the Immortal.
It's just enough, and Tempo Storm will get their first Immortal of the game, and that was so desperately needed. CE getting any kills at that point, getting the Immortal with keeps that are so low, certainly would have been a 16 against Tempo Storm, and that may have been the end of the game. Tempo Storm has stayed alive, but they have to keep fighting.
And it couldn't have come at a better time here. Tempo Storm, remember that 16 I told you about for CE? About to hit, about a half a level away from getting that holy ground, the ability to jump from across a map, it feels like, with Murden and lock down a target. Tempo Storm wants to be aggressive here. Fury goes in for a power slide, locking down one target, but Paradise wisely steps to the side and peels out the rest of Tempo Storm, allowing for his team to back up and apply damage.
16 is also huge for Lucio, being able to get Rejuven at 6. Yeah, a ton of healing now for CE with that and the Ancestral Healing, but I want to highlight Caterpillar here. He has been doing an awesome job of trying to wait and see. If they can't kill the target before Ancestral Healing hits, at least he is trying to negate it as best he can.
Brightwing coming in with the phase shift, will have a polymorph, looks to use it, does pop it out. Sanctification will be used. Greymane jump into the fight, looking for some, brings it, go for the throw. Fury's getting low on health, and he will expire. Som gets hit with the Aegis, but it's an easy lockdown there from Paradise. There's a Storm Bolt, and Tempo Storm loses 2 members.
Tempo Storm out without 16, and the 16 of CE is ripping them apart.
Holy
Another
ground.
Holy Ground separates June from his escape path, and that will be his demise. Caterpillar using Tormented Souls and a Raid Strike
He's
to teleport away, but there is another Holy Ground. Win is relentless.
He's not done. He gets out there. Kotham Bailey giving the face shield. Can they turn around and kill Wind? No. The rest of the team turns around and grabs the shield here, burning it down. Wind flirting with danger here, but does finally get out. Now this keep should be the main target, and Lockdart charges first for his team, and they will be able to take it down.
There's a polymorph there, but it won't be enough at all to save this keep. CE recognizing they can push past the Immortal. Tempo Storm were there without 16. Tempo were desperate to get something done with that, but using that 16, pushing past, knowing that the fort would be enough to deal with the Immortal, that was what CE were thinking when they went after that engage, and it paid off for them handsomely.
That it did. Now Tempo Storm is in a spot where they are in a dire situation. The next Immortal is coming, and they are still a full level away from hitting 16 themselves, while CE moves towards that level 20. CE here, if they instill a little bit of patience into their gameplay, they should have it in the bag for this Immortal. Their poke is wonderful, they have the engage they want, and Holy Ground literally changes the battleground available for them to pick up the picks that they want.
We have an Executioner pick for Grayman, goes along really well for
Nice,
Burden, as well as having the Earthgrass Totem now for Rhaegar. But what do you think about up the frequency here for Lucio? Instead of going for Rejuvenescence yet, even though they have those double warriors there with Muradin and Tyrael, instead just trying to make sure that they have Amp it up more often.
Very interesting pickup there. You can kind of understand the mentality behind it. You're going to have a lot of sustained trades from Tempo Storm, especially because they don't want to fight.
Right.
So not having so much mana burn could be a little bit decent for them. I'm actually very curious about that pickup, because when a Hungering Arrow combo comes in, you want to be able to drop down the major healing that you get from the other 16. So that not being available for CE is a bit odd, but hey, it's China. They love to bring in their talent.
Yeah, they do have some of the most talent diversity of any region, but maybe it is something that you were onto, which is more like he needs to be more of the sustained healer to be there because of the double heals of Tempo Storm between Ariel and Brightwing. But either way, Tempo Storm are still out here being willing to fight. There goes a jump in from Paradise, hits 2 with a heavy impact, but Tempo Storm are still kicking.
And CE is actually fighting on Tempo Storm's Immortal and winning out on the trades. Finally, a Hungering Arrow will connect, and that forces KTY to back up. But at the same time, look at the bottom lane. We have a Mercenary push pushing in, and Brightwing is forced to defend it. In fact, Psalm had to come back. CE should see this on the minimap and instantly move in for more damage on the Immortal.
Get right on in there. They're just kind of slow to hit that point, though. Maybe trying to heal back up and make sure they're ready for this potential final push. But 16's now here for Tempo Storm, and that changes some things. Fury has had such a difficult time between the Holy Grounds and the heavy impacts now. Trying to get in and have a place for a mosh pit, it feels like CE has their number.
Wind is insane on Tyrael. He finds Coffin on the back right corner. He goes in for the engage. The Holy Ground gives him the isolation. Muradin follows up, and they get a kill. And this allows CE to continue moving forward. Cattle drops Tormented Souls and hopes to fight.
Yeah, he is hoping to draw people away. There is a last stand mosh pit that hits 3 members of CE, but the damage just isn't quite there. Finally, Tempo Storm takes down Rhaegar, but they're going to lose a Brightwing. It's a 2 for 1, a 3 for 1, 3 for 2. It's so back and forth, the action.
Can they get one more kill here? KTY and Win will have to back up. Greymane being down as well as Rhaegar does diminish the actual damage here for CE. And Tempo Storm, with an incredible mosh pit there from ETC, is able to turn around the fight with the aid, of course, of Tormented Souls. And now Kato, pretty darn good at killing Immortals, moves over and starts progress.
He is good. He's sitting there and he's got his pocket June, trying to make sure that you can keep him safe. Cawthon has consistently been back in the base now, dealing with all of the constant pressure from those catapults. And it really does feel like you can go back to the early game aggression that CE had, how fast they were rotating even before that first Immortal, chipping away at some of the structures of Tempo Storm, and then being able to aggressively get those couple of Immortals and do a lot with them.
That has been an issue with China in the past. When they get to the late game, can they finish out the game? Can they move forward and actually take the opportunity to take out the core? Tempo Storm right now is in a position where they actually have a possible defense here. They have Tormented Souls up in 20 seconds, Mosh Pit up in another 40. They're sitting in the middle of the map, and by the time 20 hits, they should have all their heroics up and available. But it does feel like it comes down to one more chance. Another thing they have to watch out for, too, are these Holy Grounds. They have been catching supports off left and right. They have to stop that.
Yeah, that is a product of Wind, and it's not like it's just the Chinese teams. All the Korean teams are playing a ton of Tyrael 2. There it is, into the stun, the Holy Ground, and an immediate Aegis has to be used.
Psalm turns it around, drops down the multi-shot, looking to apply some damage on the Immortal. Wind moving forward, Holy Ground is up once again. On the back right corner, he wants to dive forward. Cattle tries to do as much as he can to the Immortal, while the rest of his team here tries to peel away CE.
There is the Holy Ground yet again. Psalm in trouble. trouble as Paradise goes in. Cothamluck uses Emerald Wind to turn this around, and Tempo Storm are ready to go.
They're looking for the fight, and they may have a chance here to actually win it. Cattle has applied Reaper Mark to 4 members in the fight. Paradise getting lower and lower. Psalm has able to dissuade him from going in for the fight, and now the Immortal is the main target. Tempo Storm, they may have done it when they needed to do it.
The problem with that fight, though, for Tempo Storm is that while Cattle separated everyone else away, the whole team tried to turn on one target, but that target is a Muradin. Muradin is so tanky, he wasn't even forced to use Avatar there. He just has so much health. But hopefully Tempo Storm, if they try this kind of action again, can make something come of it. But now they are starting to lose even out on core health. They're down to 96% because every time they're out here for these long sustained fights, which is what they like to do with their double support, it's costing them in their core health.
I really thought they would be able to burn down the Immortal, but they had to send Brightwing back with 2 catapults on the core, as you mentioned. It's a little bit too difficult. Cattle attempting to get more damage there on the Muradin. Die alone is one of the main things he wants to use here. The main focus is going to be the Immortal, and Tempo Storm does grab it.
A lucky break for Tempo Storm. Where Wynn's Eldrune was when he wanted to teleport to it, that happened to be pretty much where Psalm was bringing Brightwing in with Emerald Wind. And so he was way too far away from the rest of the team. He had to cycle all the way back around. Tempo Storm recognizes this, takes out the Immortal, and again, by the skin of their teeth, gets another Immortal.
Gotta yell out to CE, though, the patience they're showing here. Typically, in the past, they would have tried to fight that no matter what there. Tempo Storm found an advantage, and they pushed it. CE pulls away, and they attempt to go for a push on the top side. The main target, Brightwing, and maybe a Keep. He jumps in from across the map. There goes the Stormbow. Aloof jumps on Coffin. Coffin gets low, drops the Emerald Wind, and will be able to escape, but the Keep, not so lucky.
The Keep is absolutely gone now.
It's 22.
But Brightwing lives. That will be 20. They're going to head on back here. Just leave this to the minions. Yeah, I want to get back and not let Tempo Storm do too much else. But Fury's going to go in with a follow-up Rain of Vengeance to force Sank.
And Wings will save the target from being focused down. That Sanctification was enough. And now Loktar can jump in here as Paradise does show up. They'll turn around and put their targeting damage here on top of Coffin here. It's getting lower and lower. And finally, we'll have Vala fall as another engage occurs. And 20-19 CE with the start of a wonderful Sanctification will be able to stop Tempo Storm in their tracks.
The target swapping from CE in that fight back and forth just to take out whoever they need to do based on the defensive cooldowns. Tempo Storm may have gotten the Immortal, but CE will walk away with the game.
And you can't blame Tempo Storm on that engage. They were going for the power slide, trying to lock down a target and focus him down. But again, Wings' Sanctification just barely saved the target from being focused. And now CE, after a back and forth game, and Tempo Storm coming in and looking much better than I expected here for the tournament, is going to wind up walking away with the victory after a wonderful team fight as CE drops the core down 30, 20, 10%, and they get the first win.
A lot of momentum here for CE, who some are dubbing the best chance for a Chinese team to move on to the round of 8 based on groups. Obviously, SPT is a force in amongst themselves, but CE showing with amazing play that they have shown before, like their Tyrael play with Wind, that they are a force to be reckoned with.
That they are. Let's go back to our analyst desk here and get their thoughts on that matchup.
Thank you very much, guys. Of course, CE with a really strong victory there off the back of that. Tempo Storm had those moments where they could have tried to do something, but what really stood out to us mostly was the engage potential that we saw coming out from CE, Dread.
Yeah, the CE had such an amazing job with the Tyrael constantly taking advantage of any positioning mistake on the side of Tempo Storm. As we're going to take a look at a fight that happened at the bottom lane halfway through it. There is just a really great job. But watch when Tempo Storm decides to make the mistake of splitting a little bit upward here into this fight. Immediately, the members drop and are like, look, go upward. We can get the punishment onto Tempo Storm, dropping a legendary holy ground there, and it just really sets them up for success multiple times throughout this game. They just waited for Tempo to just right-click a smidge too far on the other side.
It's been so exciting to see Wynn's Tyrael again, time and time again, with that level 7 Angel's Grace talent, always being so fast, getting those holy grounds and isolating people.
Yeah, and it's another case right there. You see Fury go down to 50% HP because of Wind, but then watch this. Right as they find Vala and Brightwing, if one of them makes the mistake, there's the holy ground. Immediately the dwarf toss after, and it's just 100-0. Not even to highlight the fact that that was one of the most legendary sanctifications I've seen in a minute.
That was so good. And it does stand out here that Brightwing has gone for small little advantages with that level 13 talent. A little bit of physical armor, but not having ice block. That was an ice block moment if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, Tempo Storm actually, it traditionally feels like that they have pulled away a little bit from Cleanse and the ice block onto the support. That even with the bust going onto the shielding, they have been very, very consistent of just neglecting the opportunity.
And it makes sense. You get little advantages everywhere in the fight, and it's really difficult to retrace the steps, the red dots that connect the history of a game. So you can't say, well, because there was one moment that needed ice block, therefore they should have had it, because there's many other small little advantages. But that isolation on that Brightwing, that was so sick. It just they see that opportunity and they go for it.
Jayhound?
And we saw a lot of good things. We're all over here watching the games. Dread's getting all excited over here. Like, literally, if you guys could just see him off camera, he's getting crazy. And you got to think Tempo Storm, they're confident. We talked about their confidence. But CE, you can't sleep on this team. Like, you absolutely cannot sleep on this team. If you're thinking, like, oh, Tempo Storm NA. No, this is CE. Like, when a team is able to put that type of dominance on a team in game one and put that type of showing, I think that's more of a testament to the way CE played as opposed to maybe Tempo Storm's shortcoming in that game.
And I also feel like this kind of highlights what I'm expecting to kind of rise through the ranks of strategies from the Eastern versus Western meta and into a double support. Seeing that Tyrael with the Greymane, the dive, I know it's a strategy that used to be legendary, right? Looking back at Summer, that was the core, but it seems to be brought back to life purely as a response of making it to where those supports can never make one mistake or they will be dead continuously, as you saw there in the last game.
It was great engage, but there was also great disengage from CE. Every time they went into a fight, they'd be like, okay, we're losing this one. Time to disperse and go back. I'm going to hear from you guys in just a few moments' time as we are almost ready for game number 2. But before we get to that, of course, we have a word from our sponsors.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Of course, game number 2 just about to begin here in a few moments' time. We're about to find out our battleground, where we're going. But what I want to ask from you guys is, where does Tempo Storm find strength in that first game to then try and push that onto the next map?
Well, besides just the game itself in this series, you can find strength from the fact that whoever wins this series will lose to MVP Black, probably. And then they'll have to face each other again to determine who goes through if Deadly Kittens is an easy win. Now, the problem is, I don't think that they are. So it does matter to win this one. But Tempo Storm, I think they played pretty fine in the first game. Maybe sometimes a little bit shaky with the pressure. Brightwing can't clear fast enough some of those camps. Maybe could delay the port in a little bit, because it was a very self-sufficient 4-man from Tempo Storm. And I think a lot of moments they look good, just slightly out-executed. So don't lose hope and just do the same thing.
Well, let's find out where we're going to